Obviously, it's not going great so far this season for the New York Mets. $340 million payroll this year, and as we speak, they are an under 500 baseball team after playing over the last couple of weeks. Not a very difficult schedule. So I guess first off, I want to ask you about this offense where during the offseason, it appeared they were about to sign Carlos Correa, and Steve Cohen said he was the missing piece to an offense that needed one more bat. That didn't happen, and now this offense is really struggling. What is going on in Queens with the Mets and their offensive production?
Yeah, it's easy to point your finger in any number of places. The real answer, Ben, is that it's been the collective outside of maybe Brandon Nimmo, who hasn't been nearly as good lately as he was early in the season. I'm not sure there's a guy you can point to in the lineup where you're like, that guy's just having a better year than we expected. To the contrary, everyone's kind of having a worse year than you expected. Starling Marte has taken a huge step back. He's battled injuries, and Buck Showalter has pointed to that as maybe the root of his issues. Pete Alonso has a dozen home runs, but he hasn't done a whole heck of a lot else. He's been batting under 200 for most of the last month. Francisco Lindor has yet to show up and be the MVP caliber type player that we know he can be. Jeff McNeil has taken a step back. So you just go up and down the lineup, and there's really no one you can point to as stepping up and being the guy and taking the offense on their shoulders. And it's funny, you mentioned Carlos Correa. Yeah, that would have helped, but I'm not sure even another bat at this point would solve the issues, because the issues are from the big boppers within this lineup who were all really good last year, and the Mets need them to be really good again. That, to me, is a fixable aspect of this team, because it's not as if these guys are, on the wrong side of age-wise and that curve. Like, these are guys in their prime. These are guys who can hit, who have a long history of hitting. I fully expect them to regress to the mean in a good way. But until that's happened, the Mets have had all sorts of pitching struggles, which I'm sure we'll get into, and they've needed their lineup to step up, and it just hasn't happened.
With the offense, you mentioned it really stems from the big names needing to do what they do best. Lindor, Pete, as you mentioned, the homers are there, but not a ton other than that. Starling Marte. So within that locker room, in the batting cage, what are these players? Are they every day working with the hitting coach? Are they going through swing changes, or is the talk just kind of swing your way out of it? This will change. You'll be fine. Is there a lot of work going on to get through it, or is it just put your head down and keep playing hard?
Yeah, I think it's a little more the latter, Ben. I don't think there's, and I'm glad. Let me say this: I think Mets fans should be glad it's more the latter,
Yeah.
because you don't want guys to panic after a bad six,
Yep.
7 weeks and be like, and have Jeff McNeil be like, I need to revamp my swing because I'm batting 270 instead of 320. Like, no. That will come, right? Like, Pete's swing is just fine, as evidenced by all the home runs he's hit. It's pitch selection for him, and he was really good at that the first couple weeks of the season. Hasn't been as good lately. Francisco Lindor has kind of had a bizarre year where his usual power numbers are there, but he's not really hitting the singles. He's not getting the base hits. His batting average is in the tank because of it. You have to attribute some of that to luck, but it's not the type of thing where you're like, well, Lindor needs to do something totally different than what he's done in years past. So, like I said, I do think it will come for the offense. And frankly, Ben, this wouldn't be as big of an issue if they were pitching better, because they're not, and they're losing these 2-1 games instead of winning these 2-1 games. It shined this spotlight on the offense, and rightfully so, because, again, they are just not hitting.